So, dear devotees, Bhagavata Pravaha. Actually, I was thinking, when we're chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, that reminded me of Sri Prahlad Maharaja. How deep was his smarana, Prahlad Maharaja. He had no conscious of what was happening outside. Vishnu Smarana, Prahlad Maharaja. All these Mahajanas. So his Charita will come in 7th canto. So now let's see what we have had so far. In Bhagavad Pravaha, so we have seen the overview of Bhagavatam and then the whole, and then how Srimad Bhagavatam is Lord Krishna himself, that we have heard from Padma Purana. And then overview of Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 2nd canto, 3rd canto, 4th canto of Bhagavatam. We have heard all this. Now, 5th canto of Bhagavatam, that's where we are now. So in the 5th canto, we have heard about, 5th canto is about the descendants of Priyavrata Maharaj. So we have heard about Priyavrata Maharaj, his ruling, his charita. After that, Agnidra. And Agnidra's older son was Nabi. And Nabi's son was Rishabhadeva. So we have heard all that. And now, Rishabhadeva's older son was Bharata Maharaj. So we will be hearing about Bharata Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj Charita, that is described in Srimad Bhagavatam in 3 lives. So same Bharat Maharaj, he first life was as King Bharata, and then as Deer Bharata, and the 3rd life was Jada Bharata, where he perfects his life. So these 3 lifetimes are about only one soul, that is soul Bharata only. But this is explained over 3 lives. So that is the Bharata Maharaj Charita that we are going to hear. We'll do some today, and the next session, in the next session, we will be able to complete Jada Bharata's teaching. So that will be the plan. We'll take you to the Bharata Maharaj. Beautiful. It's such a wonderful feeling to enter into Srimad Bhagavatam and be with these Mahajanas. That's Bharata Maharaj. That's King Bharata. In this story, in this Charita, we will see 2 things. We'll see many things, but especially we'll see how our spiritual journey is a continuity from one life to the next life. So whatever we are right now, spiritual journey that we have now, we are continuing with what we have had in the past. And sometimes it may be the very first life, but generally spiritual journey is continuation. That we will see in Bharata Maharaj Charitra. And the second thing is how Bhagavan's mercy is not very evident, but it is very abundant. Bhagavan's mercy is very hidden and abundant. How is it like that? That also we will see with this Bharata Maharaj Charita. Okay. So now, in the last session, we have heard about how our Rishabhadeva, King Rishabhadeva was ruling Ajanaba Varsha, and he had 100 sons, and he endorsed Bharat Maharaj to rest of his sons and asked them to consider him as his guru and please him, and that will be equivalent to pleasing Rishabhadeva. That's what he said. And after that, Rishabhadeva enters into the forest fire, and then Bharata Maharaj, Rishabhadeva enthrones Bharata Maharaj, and then enters and then wanders around and then enters into the forest fire. So That's how Bharata Maharaj became king, when he was enthroned by Rishabhadeva. And how did he rule his kingdom? As his father did, Rishabhadeva, and his great-grandfather, Prithu Maharaj, and Dhruva Maharaj. How did they rule their citizens? We still remember, right? Rishabhadeva ruled his citizens so much, he gave so much affection to his citizens that the citizens forgot what to ask. They forgot if they have any miseries at all. So like that. In that very wonderful way, Bharat Maharaj also ruled his kingdom and very affectionately took care of his citizens. And here it is said that Bharata Maharaj, as any other kings, he was also doing the yajnas. And these kshatriyas, when they are doing these yajnas, either fire sacrifices or Ashwamedha yajna, any yajna, there are two reasons, two purposes. One is to for the welfare of the people, welfare of the citizens. And these yajnas are they are meant to please the demigods, and the demigods will give something back in return. That is generally why the yajnas are done. But in the case of these great devotees, Rajarshis like Prithu Maharaj and Bharata Maharaj, they are doing yajnas to the demigods. But here in the case of Bharat Maharaj, he was seeing the demigods as the limbs of the Lord Vishnu. So in that way, he was doing yajna to satisfy the limbs of Lord Vishnu, who are the demigods, like that. So in that way, all his ruling as a Kshatriya and all his sacrifices, everything was dovetailed, Krishnized, directly to Lord Vishnu. So in this way, Bharata Maharaj was doing the yajna and looking upon the welfare of his citizens. Narada Muni, when he was instructing Prachetas, he mentioned this one, right? Yadha tarormula nishechanena tripyanti skanda bhujopashaka pranopaharachayadendriyanam tadaiva sarvarhanam achyutejya. As the water is poured to the roots, when the water is poured to the roots, as the branches and leaves and twigs, they get nourished, when the Achyuta is worshipped, all the demigods are also satisfied. So there is no separate offering that is needed for the demigods. In the case of Bharat Maharaj, he's doing the demigods, but he's not worshipping them separately as independent gods who are independent of Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not looking at them like that. He's looking at the demigods in relationship with Lord Vishnu and then honoring them as a part of Lord Vishnu, as the limbs of Lord Vishnu, like that. Sometimes we get these questions, right? Devotees ask when some festivals come, especially coming in India, back home, before we joined the Krishna consciousness back home, then there, in some families, there would be some worship of different demigods, right? So then they asked, can we worship the demigod now that we took Diksha? Can we still worship those demigods like that? And the answer is, if there was no worship of demigods before, then there is no need of worship of demigods separately. Because in Vishwarupam also, we remember, right? All the demigods are present in that Vishwarupam, which is Lord Krishna. In that way, all the demigods will be satisfied when the Lord is worshipped, as Narada Muni has instructed Prachetas. But if there was any worship that was going on in the family of a specific demigod or Mother Parvati or Lord Shiva, like that, then if we are seeing them as empowered devotees, or how Vaishnavanam Yada Shambhu, Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava, and Mother Durga, who is Yogamaya in the spiritual world. So if we are looking at all those empowered personalities in relationship with Krishna and offering due respect, that is wonderful. We have to offer due respect to the demigods. And when the worship is done, then the worship is done in relevance to the Supreme Lord. And when the offerings are given, then the offering is directly given to the Supreme Lord, and that offering is then honored by the demigods. They will be very happy, and then we get the Mahaprasad, like that. So that is just a note regarding the Devata worship. Yeah, and here our Jada Bharata, not Jada Bharata, he's still King Bharata. King Bharata, that's how he rules his kingdom for a long time. And by the way, even before he got enthroned, he was married her wife's name something, but he had 5 sons. Yeah. So to these 5 sons, Jada Bharata divides his kingdom into 5, and then gives that to his sons, and he goes to the forest. So now what happens in the forest? Here, dear devotees, you must have remembered, right? In the first canto, Narada Muni's spiritual journey that we have heard. There in Narada Muni's journey, we have heard from the very beginning, Adav Shraddha Tada Sadhu Sangha, where he got the acquaintance and association of Bhakti Vedantas, and then he took the shelter, like that, right? So that's in the Narada Muni Charita from the very beginning. And here, Bharata, King Bharata, he is pretty much advanced, because even when he was ruling his kingdom also, his devotion was great. And look at that, all the ruling was done keeping Lord Vishnu in mind. Even the sacrifices were done keeping Lord Vishnu in mind. So he was pretty much in the stage of Nishta Ruchi by that time. Yeah. And now he comes to the forest. He comes to this particular ashrama, Pulaha ashrama. Sage Pulastya's ashrama, Pulaha ashrama. This is there in Badrika ashrama. Yeah. And in this Pulaha ashrama, Gandaki river was flowing besides there. In all these ashramas, these sages, for their tapasa, they need a river that flows by. And they would have a hermitage by the bank of that river. Like that, Bharata Maharaj, he's actually a Muni, he's a Rishi by this time. So Bharata Maharaj goes to this Pulaha ashrama, and the beautiful Gandaki river is flowing there. Gandaki river, very unique thing, special thing about Gandaki river is Shalagram Shilas are available there. And they are Shalagram Shilas. They have, naturally, they have different shapes and different symbols on each of those black marble stones, Shalagram Shilas. So, Bharata Maharaj, he used to worship. He used to worship the Shalagram Shilas. He used to bring the flowers that are there in the forest and the fruits, and offered everything that is around to the Shalagram Shilas there. In that way, Bharata Maharaj was very much absorbed in the worship. So much so absorbed, his meditation unto the lotus feet of Lord Hari got so much deeper and dense, something beautiful happens. What happens when the meditation goes so deeper? Yeah, this one here. Bharata Maharaj, by this time he's in stage of, Ruchi. Yeah. His meditation has gone so deep on the lotus feet, reddish lotus feet of Lord Hari, the Lord in the heart, that he started having Ashta Satvika Vikara. Ashta, 8, Satvika Vikara. The different symptoms that a body would exhibit when it enters into the Shuddha Satvika Vikara. Those are the symptoms Bharata Maharaj started exhibiting while he was in the meditation, worshipping the Shalagramashilas, and he was in the meditation. So it is said that his meditation on the reddish lotus feet of Lord Hari was so deep that his heart, which was like a pond with water, turned into a pond of love of God. That was the description Srimad Bhagavatam gives. Here, Bharata Maharaj is at the stage of bhava. At the stage of bhava, and he is almost in and out of his physical consciousness, that he's present in this body, that kind of external consciousness. He's almost in and out of it. Pretty advanced stage. And, in Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, Pratyahara, Yama, Niyama, Pranayama, Pratyahara. By the time Pratyahara is done, Pratyahara is withdrawing the mind, then focusing the mind within. That is Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So Bharata Maharaj, he was in the stage of Dharana, Dhyana. So that was a stage of absorption. And then he was having this ecstatic symptoms. What is the metaphysical understanding of these ecstatic symptoms? Why does that happen? It's because, see, the Chaitana that we have, the consciousness that we have, when the consciousness is contracted, Sankuchita Chaitana, then it is said to be in the mode of ignorance and then passion. That's where the consciousness is contracted. It's not expanded. Yeah. From Sankuchita Chaitana comes Mukulita Chaitana, budding Chaitana. It is budding like a flower. Consciousness is slowly expanding. After Mukulita Chaitana, when the consciousness, Chitta, expands little more, that is Vikasita Chaitana. After that is Purna Vikasita Chaitana. The consciousness has expanded to its fullest. That is Prema, love of Godhead, right? So Bharat Maharaj consciousness was expanding. That is Vikasita Chaitana. So when the consciousness, why is it expanding? Because of his meditation, absorption onto the lotus feet of Lord Hari, who is not different from Lord Hari. And the Lord Hari is Antaryami. Lord's lotus feet is present everywhere. Right? Present everywhere. See the signs on the lotus feet of Lord Hari, if you remember, there is Ambara. Ambara means sky. And what it signifies means the Lord's lotus feet, the Lord is present everywhere. Like that. So it means present everywhere means how is that consciousness expanding? That is expansion of consciousness. Purna Vikasita Chaitana. So in this way, when that is happening, when the absorption on the lotus feet of Lord Hari happens, then the consciousness expands. This expansion of the consciousness is it reflects as a certain mood in the chitta, in the heart or in the mind. That is, the heart becomes very soft and the devotee becomes very compassionate. They don't even want to step on the ants like that. They become very compassionate and the heart becomes very soft. That's one of the indications of expansion of the consciousness. So that's what happens in the mind or in the heart. And the same thing is reflected in this Panchabhutas, the body, as Nayanam Galadashrudharaya, Vadanam Gadgadaruddhayavira, Pulakair Nichitair Vapukada, hair standing on the end, and tears rolling down the eyes, voice choking out. Yeah. All these. And there are other symptoms also that would happen. Sometimes the joints of the body also are elongated. Those are explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita about the Ashtasattvika Vikara of Gaurachandra. How the body, all the consciousness, expansion of the consciousness reflects in the body. Those are the Ashtasattvika Vikars. So that is the mechanism behind what happens to a devotee when they are deeply absorbed in the transcendence, in the absorption in the transcendental qualities of the Lord. This is what happens, Ashtasattvika Vikara. So this is wonderful, beautiful. These are all great devotees. Then what about our emotions then? So these emotions are very purified emotions of the pure devotees, Ashtasattvika Vikara. Do we have those symptoms? Do we have those emotions as sadhakas? For us, when we do the bhakti, up until we get to Nishtha and Ruchi, we still have a lot of passion. There is considerable ignorance and there is passion too, and goodness is also there. Otherwise, it's not so easy to be in the stage of Nishtha. Nishtha means steady state of servitude, 24/7, steady state of servitude. One is able to offer devotional service 24/7 steadily. There can be up and down in what they feel inside and when something comes upon them, but they still go on. They still go on. They don't stop. That is Nishtha. And the next stage is they go on with the service with great taste and less effort. That is Ruchi. Okay. So up until somebody comes to that Nishtha and Ruchi, we have Rajoguna and Tamoguna in us. So though we have this wonderful feelings of devotion that comes every now and then, yeah, they are all tinged by ignorance, the tamas and rajas that we still have. So up until Nishtha and Ruchi, there is a considerable tamoguna and rajoguna, along with the transcendental emotions that a devotee might feel. But past that, in this stage, there is more of bhakti rasa than the rajoguna and tamoguna. Yeah, so that is something to understand. So if we are feeling anything devotional, it is very good. It is prasad, because those things are not manufactured here. We cannot force ourselves to feel. So if we are feeling anything like that in devotion, those are the encouraging moments and the prasad from Guru and Krishna. But we also have to understand that there are Rajo and Tamoguna until we get to the stage of, until we are taken to the stage of Nishtha and Ruchi. That's one thing. And the second thing is, Bharata Maharaj, he was having so many tears out of ecstasy that it is clouding his eyes and he wasn't able to see the Shalagram Shila and perform worship. So he condemned the tears. He didn't wanted those symptoms of ecstasy because they are in way of his devotion service. That is one more thing very important for us. Even in the case of Daruka, who was Lord Krishna's servant, and he was fanning peacock feather, and he was feeling so ecstatic, thinking of the qualities of the Lord. And with that ecstasy again, the tears start rolling down the cheeks. For us, yes, it may happen, but there are mixed gunas also within us. But for them, there is more of bhava there. So he didn't wanted those tears because he didn't wanted any of those symptoms to come his way of offering the service. Same here, Bharata Maharaj too. He didn't wanted the tears to disturb his service. So it is the service that is more important. The continuity of the service, pleasing the Lord, is more important than what kind of ecstatic symptoms we are having. Yeah, service comes first because service is equal to pleasing Lord. Devotee is so enthused to please the Lord that he does not care if he is ecstatic or if he is sad. At that stage, there's no big difference between ecstasy or sadness when they're so much absorbed and inclined to only serving the Lord. Okay, so that's one for us. Service comes first. And then, so this was the stage of Bharata Maharaj. And we think, wow, this is stage of Bhava. And the next stage is just Prema. Because Bhava is the budding stage to the Prema. Right? And then what happened after that? He is in the forest. He's in this such advanced stage. Remember, Bharata Maharaj's heart is very soft now. So soft, with full of emotions to Lord Hari in the heart. Very compassionate. Yeah. And then what happened? So he was doing his tapasya like that. One day, when he was doing his tapasya, he heard a big lion roaring. And he turned to that side and saw it. What he saw was, there was a deer, a mother deer, which was pregnant. And she was trying to drink water from the Gandaki river. And then this deer heard this big lion roar in a very close proximity. So it got terrified. And this mother deer, she's pregnant. And so out of that terror, it tried to leap across the river. And then what happened is, because of that fear and because of that leap, this mother deer, pregnant deer, she gave birth to the baby, and this little deer, the baby deer, was floating on the water, separated from the mother. This mother felt so sad. It came to the other side of the river, but felt so separated from this baby deer. It went into the cave and it left its body. Bharata Maharaj saw this. Bharata Maharaj saw this little deer, the baby deer, floating on the water. His heart was already so soft and compassionate. He couldn't just let the baby deer float away. So he took the baby deer in his hands. And he felt very sorry for this baby deer. And he was compassionate to this deer. He wanted to give a little shelter and feed the deer. That was very wonderful. To show compassion on any living entity is wonderful. But what happened to Bharat Maharaj? It just started like this. This compassion started in just picking up the baby deer. It did not stop in giving a little grass and then continuing with his tapas. That did not happen. Bharata Maharaj, slowly, all his sacrifices, his worships, it was coming down. The external activities, devotional activities, they are dwindling down, they are coming down. And all these are replaced by this activities with the deer. This deer could just survive even if it is given a little grass, but that did not stop there. Bharata Maharaj started thinking, oh, this poor little deer is so much dependent on me. She doesn't have her mother now. Look at her. Oh, I really have to take care of this deer. If I don't take care of this deer, then the animals in this forest, they will cause harm to this. Yeah. So it's my prime responsibility to take care of this deer. I know I'm doing this devotional activities. Yes, I know. But in order to care for a jiva, it is okay. It is okay to put them aside because I have to take care of this deer. If I don't take care of this deer, what's going to happen to this deer? Poor deer doesn't have a mother. So what has happened? Krishna or Lord Vishnu, who was on the altar of his heart and worship, is slowly replaced by this deer. So from Krishna consciousness or Vishnu consciousness, he slowly became deer consciousness. He was so much conscious of deer that he started seeing deer, he considered this deer as his little son, beloved son. So he started seeing deer everywhere he's seeing. Everywhere, in any direction he sees, he's just seeing this deer. And every thought of him is just filled with this deer. Like, Yomam pashyati sarvatra, sarvam cha mai pashyati. Tasyaham na pranashyami, sachame na pranashyati. These are the words of the Lord and they belong to the Lord, not to a jiva. But how much Bharata Maharaj got entangled into it. He has come to this point, Yomam pashyati sarvatra. Wherever he's seeing deer, not the Lord. Like that. So, and he has become so illusioned, moha with this deer. What happened? He was thinking. See how his thoughts were. All his thoughts before was about the Lord and about the qualities of the Lord. And that's why the tears started flowing from his eyes. Now all those thoughts about the Lord are replaced by the deer. It's the same compassionate heart that Bharata Maharaj has, but the object is replaced. What happens when that object is replaced? When the love is reposed on the object of worship, Priti Vastu, Priti Vishaya, then that is Sharanagati, right? When the feelings, when the love and thoughts are reposed on the Priti Vishaya, the Lord, that is Sharanagati. When the same feelings are reposed on anybody else other than Bhagavat Tattva, then this is a step down from Sharanagati. What happens when the shelter of the Lord is gone? When somebody is taking the shelter of the Lord in the thoughts and in the seva, and when that is replaced by a jiva, then Sharanagati stepped down to the mode of goodness. So in the mode of goodness also, there is a lot of compassion. There's a lot of compassion. But there doesn't have to be shelter of the Lord. So that's the difference. Now Bharata Maharaj, he's still having compassion, but all his thoughts are filled about this little deer. He's thinking, oh, how helpless is this deer? This is forced by the time and is alone. And it has taken my shelter. And the deer is totally dependent on me, has full faith in me. my, aham, mameti. When the shelter of the Lord is gone, the cloud of aham mameti takes us over. That's what happened to Bharat Maharaj. Otherwise, look at those thoughts. I have to give the shelter to this deer. This deer is mine and is dependent on me, the doership. And I have to give the shelter, the controllership, doership. Deer is mine. And I am like his father. So aham mameti. This is what has happened. So even in the mode of goodness, there is aham mameti. He was very safely secured in the thoughts of the Lord, in the Sharanagati Bhava to the Lord. But now he is now thinking of the deer like this. And as we have just discussed, he was saying, yeah, I have to be non-envious. I should be taking care of these living beings. And I have to give all my affection to this little deer that is dependent on me. How can I neglect? I know it can be disturbing to my spiritual life, but how can I neglect? So it is very much trapping, right? So these are the signs. These are the signs. Where is it? Yeah. How do we know that one is slowly sliding down spiritually? It doesn't have to be an abrupt fall. It can be slowly sliding down. So these are the ways of thinking. And what happened to Bharat Maharaj with this kind of, I have to take care of the deer. The deer is so precious, like my little son. And Bharata Maharaj has gone into so much of illusion with this deer. Once this deer was not seen for some time. And Bharata Maharaj has almost gone into panic. And he was crying, where are you? Where are you? Where is this little one gone? It was so much dependent on me. And who is going to take care of her now? I don't know where she is. Oh, I wasn't being a good master. I feel guilty that I did not take care of my duty properly. What has happened to this deer? So this kind of guilt and this kind of fear about what has happened to this deer, and agitated looking around where this deer is. So agitation, anxiety, fear, guilt, lamentation, all these things were coming upon to him. These are all the symptoms of aham mameti, I and mine attachment. So Bharata Maharaj was starting to have that. And also his illusion has gone so much that when he saw the deer steps, on the soil there in the forest, looking at the steps, he was thinking, oh, how fortunate is this earth that it gets to have this deer steps, the footsteps of my fond son. How fortunate is this earth? Oh, I'm looking at the moon. I see some marks on the moon. Did my deer go there? It a pagal ban gaya. He was illusioned. So all those emotions that are meant for the Lord, these are all replaced, diverted to a jiva. And when these are diverted to a jiva, then, as we just heard, aham mameti cloud soon takes us over. And when that cloud takes us over, agitation, anxiety, guilt, lamentation, fear, these things come. All this happened to Bharat Maharaj, who was in the stage of bhava, and now all this is not because he was in envy. It didn't happen because of the anger or envy or violence, this stepping down. this all happened because of the compassion. That's why this is a big trap. Compassion is wonderful. Jivadaya is wonderful. But Nam Ruchi are the roots. So under the shelter of the Nam Ruchi, Jivadaya can go on completely and continuously. Not only to this deer, Bharata Maharaj could have given protection to so many others if he was still continuing to have Nam Ruchi. But he was displaced. He put the Nam Ruchi aside. He put the devotional activities and worship aside, and then got trapped in this mode of goodness, compassion. And there, slowly, with ahamamiti, it got dwindled down to agitation, anxiety, lamentation. So Jivadaya should be there, but always with the Nam Ruchi. And only then it is good for the jivas that are being taken care of, and it is good for the jiva who is doing the Jivadaya. Only when the Nam Ruchi is there, the Jivadaya can be complete and continuous. Yeah. So, like this, Bharata Maharaj here very nicely depicted what happened to Bharata Maharaj. How did the sliding down happen in his from his exalted stage of bhava? First of all, the first thing is he was compassionate on that living entity. Due compassion is wonderful, but it should not be entrapping us and taking us away from the Namaruchi, away from our devotional activities. That was the first thing. And then forgetfulness. Slowly, this compassion has clouded him so much on this jiva that he started forgetting his spiritual activities. Not only forgetting, he started voluntarily neglecting those sadhana. For us, it is sadhana. And for him, all the spiritual activities. And by that time, he was so much into I and mine. There was so much affection and attraction to this deer. And this distracted him from his spiritual life. This affection and attraction has led to agitation, anxiety, and lamentation. So in this lamentation, Bharata Maharaj, he left his body, thinking of his deer so much. Yeah. And then what happens? Whatever is the consciousness that we have at the time of death or leaving the body, that is what we are going to attain. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajate ante kalaivaram. Tam tam eva iti kauntaya. Sada tad bhava bhavita. Whatever bhava you have, whatever smarana you have, when you are leaving the body, that is what you would attain. Sada tad bhava bhavita. So this Bharata Maharaj was thinking of this deer so much that he became the deer in the next life. Yeah. And so this is what happened to Bharata Maharaj. And here in this context, Srila Prabhupada, he says how real compassion, Jivadaya, is not just taking care of the body. Taking care of the body is good. Giving some relief to the mind is good. But give the real identity of the soul. Uplift their consciousness by giving the knowledge of their real identity. So they can anchor to something that is eternal, the Lord. So the real compassion, real Jivadaya is to share Krishna with others. And when that is the goal, to share Krishna with others, when that is the real Jivadaya, whatever steps are there for us in order to get there, then we will be mindful of those steps too. To approach others, to meet where they are, and to be caring to them in whatever way we can, so they can carry the message that we are giving to them. Why would they care the message that we are giving if we are not caring for them? So we want to care for them at all levels possible as much as we can, so they can care the message that we are giving them. So that's Jivataya. To give them their original identity. And also, the transfer of attachment. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. Attachment is meant to be on the Lord. And if it is transferred to anything other than Lord is temporary. The people around, the things around, they are related to the Lord. Right? So the attachment to be dovetailed to the Lord. Attachment should be to the Lord. And everything else needs to be performed in that consciousness, in Krishna Bhavana. There's only one Priti Vastu, that is Govinda. In that Krishna Bhavana, whatever words and deeds that we do, then they will be, then that will be auspicious for them and for us. So attachment is to be reposed on only one eternal Adhyatmika Vastu, that is the Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. So that's how Bharata Maharaj has become the deer. And now we'll be thinking, what is this? Oh my God. Bharata Maharaj, who was almost in the stage of Bhava, he has become a deer. What is going to happen to me? I am, after all, a sadhaka who is just in Anartha Nivritti, trying to do a little bit in bhakti. What about me? Like that. Yeah. So two things here, dear devotees. One is, first thing is, here we see that Bharata Maharaj has become deer. But this is not an ordinary deer. This is deer Bharata. King Bharata has come into deer body. This is deer Bharata. This deer Bharata did not lose the memory of what has happened to him in the previous life. So now this deer Bharata remembers everything. He realizes his mistake. He was thinking, oh, what did I do? My Priti Vastu is to be. Priti Vastu should be Bhagwan. And I have replaced it with an ordinary deer. So this deer Bharata remembers everything. And what actually happens is, this deer Bharata takes birth in the womb of a deer at a mountain called, I think, Kalanjara. But even after taking birth, this deer Bharata remembers everything of the past life. So this time he really wanted to be very careful. What deer Bharata, a little deer Bharata does is, he leaves the mother at that Kalanjara, the mountains, and comes to the Pulaste Muni, the Pulahashrama again, to this very place where he was before in the past life. He just stays there. And he still continues his absorption inside. So the intensity of the devotion on Lord Vishnu is increasing, even though Bharata is in the deer body now. So this Bharata in deer body intensifies the devotion, and then at that Pulahashrama leaves the body, the deer body also. And from there, he enters into the body of a Brahmana. And his name is Jada Bharata. The same Bharata in the third life is called Jada Bharata. Why is he called Jada Bharata? Because this Brahmana, this boy was born to the youngest wife of a Brahmana. And since the childhood, Again, he still remembers his previous two lives. What happened as deer, what happened as king. He is super conscious now, very vigilant. He didn't want to take a bit of risk of getting attached to anything outside. So he starts acting as Jada. Jada is like a madman. Yeah, like a foolish person. He starts acting like that. That's why his name is Jada Bharata. Yeah. So we'll come to the life of Jada Bharata soon. But here our question is, Maharaj Bharata was in king body, now in deer body. Where is the king body? Where is the deer body? The topmost life, human life, to the animal body? Okay, animal body. And after that, as a Jada Bharata? This is apparently what we see externally. And we think, what? Krishna, what's happening to your devotee here? Because he thought of deer at the time of death? Just because of that? Yam yam vapismaran bhava? What happened to all the tapasya he has done? Is this fair, Krishna? So much of regression? Is this spiritual regression or evolution? That's what we think. So apparently, Bharata was in a king body, exalted body, and came into an animal body. But the consciousness, the spiritual consciousness that he was carrying within is only evolving. His intensity of bhakti is only getting more and more denser. So this is Rakshisyati iti Vishwaso Gotritve Varnam Tada. So all the devotees, their spiritual assets, they will be protected. They will be protected and they will be maintained, and the evolution will continue without any halt in between. It will only grow. That's the mercy of the Lord. Yeah. So apparently it may look like there is regression, but it is only apparent regression. But factually, there is only a progression there. That's the potency of the mercy of the Lord. And in this context, we want to know, in our spiritual journey, if we see that there is a halt in the spiritual journey or a regression, then it would be because of two reasons. One is Lord's arrangement, like in this case. It may look like regression, but is not a regression. It's the same case as in Vratrasara. He was in Chitraketu's body, goes into a demon body, but he's an exalted devotee. The soul inside Vratrasara is an exalted one. So in these cases, in the cases of the Sharanagata Bhaktas, it is explained, Bhagavatam says it's because of King Bharata's karmic reaction in the past. That's what Bhagavatam says. But Acharyas explain, when a devotee takes shelter of the Lord, proportionate to the shelter that he takes to the Lord, all the karmic actions are burnt. So what happens to a Sharanagata Bhakta in his life is only the arrangement of the Lord. So here, for King Bharata, since he was a Sharanagata Bhakta, what has happened is the arrangement of the Lord. Why did Lord arrange like this? This is to intensify the devotion that he has in his heart. So it doesn't take too long for him to come from bhava to prema. And the example is like this. Say when we are going on a freeway like this, and if there is a construction happening, it may look like we are not going on the freeway anymore. But when we take the detour and take some bypass or so, then with that little neighborhood roads or the bypass road, the destination is reached sooner when compared to this, the freeway, a long way to go and then take the exit and then to come here like that. So when in the Lord's arrangement, it looks like there is a halt, but his arrangement is so beautiful. Even though it may look like a halt, he's quickly getting us to the destination. Adaram Maduram, Vadanam Maduram, whatever Lord does is Maduram. Even this also, it may look like there is a regression, but no, he is getting to the destination quicker. That's one thing. Where we see that there is an apparent spiritual obstacle. And the second type is a real one, where a devotee commits an aparadha, especially the Vaishnava, hurts some other devotee, and is not inclined to change, and is not inclined for the change in the heart. And what happens is, in that case, the bhakti rasa that flows in the heart is halted because of that resistance to change. And if that block is taken away, if the devotee changes for good, if that block is taken away, then the bhakti rasa flows. So this is the other scenario where we see that there can be apparent block in bhakti when the devotee voluntarily does not want to change in the heart and continues to hurt the devotees. That's when the devotion can be halted for some time, as long as the devotee is willing to change in the heart. Okay, that's one thing. So these are the this is the life of dear Bharata. And then this dear Bharata, in the third life, he goes into this Brahmana boy, that is Jada Bharata. So as we just discussed, this Jada Bharata is born to the youngest wife of a Brahmana. So internally, he remembered his life and is absorbed in Krishna so much. But externally, he behaved like a madman. He avoided interacting with anybody. He didn't want it to fall down at all. He had enough that he has gone through as a King Bharata and as dear Bharata. Now he doesn't want to take any more chance. So that's why he refused to learn even the smallest things. How to eat, how to drink, how to clean himself, all these little things also. His father and mother were very loving, but he didn't want it to yield to anything outside. Even the Achaman, the Achaman, taking Achaman is so simple thing, right? But Jadabharata, he refused even to learn that. Because he didn't want it to just start doing the Achaman and then one thing after go after and get entangled outside. That's Jadabharata, because of whatever he has gone through in the previous lives. So he continued to act as a fool. And after some time, his mother passes away and the father also passes away. So the stepmothers are there, stepbrothers are there. They don't treat Jadabharata well. They make him do a lot of chores and feed him the burnt rice that sticks at the bottom of the pot, like that. And one day, they send Jadabharata to watch the paddy fields from the birds, like that. So Jadabharata goes there to watch the paddy fields. That's when, these dacoits, they were in search of, Narabali. Narabali is, they were in search of a human being to sacrifice. They were in search of a human being to offer as animal sacrifice to Kali, Mother Kali. So these dacoits found Jadabharata and he looked like a madman. And they thought, okay, he's a fit person to give him as a sacrifice to Mother Kali. And these dacoits, they were doing this human sacrifice in order for them to flourish in their cheating and stealing. So that's what they were doing. That's their concocted way of sacrificing the human for their powers to steal. So that is Swavidhana. They came with their own concocted way of worshipping Mother Kali by human sacrifice. So they brought Jadabharata to this sacrifice place. Jadabharata did not resist a bit. And remember, he knows very well what is happening with him. He remembers his past lives. He knows what is going on around. And he knows why these dacoits have come, taken him to this place, brought him to this place. He did not resist a bit. And Jadabharata, even when his stepmothers and his stepbrothers were treating him ill, he did not talk back a bit, because his mission is different. His mission is pretty serious one internally. So nothing outside, whatever is happening outside, did not bother him. He didn't want to budge a bit. So he knows now that he's brought here for sacrifice. He didn't offer any resistance. So these dacoits laid him down, and they raised the sword and about to chop off his head. Just then, from the murti, from the deity of Kali, actual Mother Kali came out. The goddess came out. She was very furious with these dacoits. She killed them all. She killed them all, and she gave all the blood of those dacoits to her companions, bhutas and pishachas like that. So here in this case, Mother Kali, she's now in the role of punishing these wicked people who are in ignorance. That's the role she's playing now. But Mother Kali, she's Shakti, not even ordinary goddess. Yeah. So how all these demigods and Lord Shiva and Mother Kali, all of them, they look after the devotees. In this case, Mother Kali, she punished so-called her devotees, because her devotees, they are concocting their own thing and causing violence. So these demigods or the Shakti, these Shakti Tattva or Shiva Tattva, they do not, they are more in favor of Sattva. Though they are trying to rescue the people in the Tamoguna, they are in more favor of those devotees who are in Sattva and who are in Hari Bhajan. Same in Rudra Gita also, Lord Shiva says that, right? And here Mother Kali clearly showed that Jadabharata should be alive and everybody else was killed. So Jadabharata was rescued like that. And for Jadabharata, it didn't really matter if the dacoits brought him there. It didn't really matter if it was going to be chopped out. It didn't really matter if it was going to be saved. And he just offers pranams to Mother Kali and he simply walks away. It didn't matter to him. So that was the Udasina of Jadabharata. So in this way, Jadabharata is saved here by Mother Kali. And then Jadabharata starts walking in the forest again. And that's when he will meet Rahuguna. That's a beautiful conversation. The instructions of Jadabharata to Rahuguna. That will be the next section. Yeah. So for now, this is today's activities. And so winding down, what did we hear today? This is about Bharata Maharaj. Bharata Maharaj in 3 lives. How spiritual journey goes on from one body to the other. Spiritual journey is continuous. Yeah. And the second thing is how the Lord's mercy may not be obvious, but is abundant. Lord's mercy may not be evident, obvious, but is very abundant. Like in the case of Bharata Maharaj, how his spiritual, the bhakti inside is saved so well and intensified. Though apparently he was going through an animal body and to a dumb man body. Like that, these two things about Bharata Maharaj so far. So in the sequence, Bharata Maharaj was ruling his country, and he offered the demigod worship in relationship with Lord Vishnu, seeing them as the limbs of the Lord. There we have discussed how we want to honor all the demigods because they're the empowered jivas of the Lord. But they were honored, respected in relationship with the Lord. And then Bharat Maharaj came to the Pulaha ashram at the stage of Bhava. There we have heard how this is why bhakti is very potent. Though it looks like emotional, this is beyond emotional because all the emotions are purified, past, ruchi. So there we have discussed, we have heard about how when the absorption meditation onto the lotus feet of Lord Hari gets more denser and continuous, then the consciousness expands, the heart becomes soft. And this softness of the heart is felt as liquefied heart. And this consciousness, expanding consciousness, is reflected as Ashtasatvika Vikari. Through this body and through the mind or heart, it is reflected as compassion, very compassionate and gentle. So these are the things that go together when somebody is absorbed deep in the thoughts and lotus feet of Lord Hari. So that's what we have discussed. And then the practical, something relevant to us is, if there are any transcendental emotions that are given to us during the stage of sadhaka, they are all drops of mercy for our encouragement, to increase our faith, to get our taste a little more. But we have to realize that we still have the Rajo and Tamo gunas until we get to stage of Nishtha and Ruchi. And past that, there will be lot of Bhakti Rasa and very little Rajoguna, Tamoguna. That's one point. And second point is, the seva is more important than the symptoms that we have. Devotional service should go on, and the symptoms should not be the obstruction for our devotional service that we have heard. And next thing is, yes, there can be Jivadaya, but not at the cost of leaving Namaruchi. In other words, yes, we have to be compassionate. Yes, we have to be helpful, but cannot be compromised in the sadhana. Our sadhana should go on. This is the strength and this is the anchor. Only when the sadhana is sound and continuous, then the seva can be complete and continuous. The compassion can be continuous and complete. So, the Nam Ruchi should go on and cannot be displaced or compromised by anything else. Okay. And the other thing we have seen is the major difference. Yeah. So Maharaj Bharat was ecstatic and he had no fear whatsoever when he was doing his tapasya, meditating on the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. But as soon as his attention was diverted in the name of compassion to a living entity, we have heard what came up? Agitation, anxiety, lamentation. So this is the major difference. How do we know that somebody is in Sharanagati or not? Major distinguishing thing is abhaya, fearless. One who is under the shelter of the Lord, takes shelter of the Lord, dependent of the Lord, then they are fearless. Ashoka, no miseries. Abhaya is fearless. and Amrita. They will be tasting nectar. So that's the big difference. As long as we are in Sharanagati, dependent on the Lord, then we are fearless. If you're starting to have fear, it means the Sharanagati is not that strong. But again, this is the story of the pure devotees who are totally dependent on the Lord. Then what about us? What's the practical application for us? When we are not so totally dependent on Krishna, how do we get there? Here, Bharata Maharaj is so totally dependent on the person Krishna. Sharanagati is on person Krishna. Here we are in the beginning stages. So how do we make our journey till there? Yeah. So as much as one is dependent on the Lord, so much will they be fearless. This is very wonderful. But how do I make the journey till there? Wherever we are, if we are seeing whatever is happening, not if, when we are seeing whatever is happening to us in our life as an arrangement of Krishna, so-called good or so-called bad, yeah, when we are seeing that as arrangement of Krishna, and then take one step at a time, prayerfully, faithfully, gratefully, one step at a time, then that is the journey of Sharanagati. So over a period of time, then we are heading towards this pure devotees. So those are the steps that we take towards Sampurna Sharanagati. One step at a time. One step at a time, prayerfully, faithfully, because this is an authentic process. Prayerfully, because everything is prasad and we are dependent on Guru and Krishna. And third thing is gratefully. If we are not stepping in these ways of Sharanagati, we would be stepping in the ways of karma. But that's not happening to us. This is happening to us. So we are grateful like that. So that is the application for us, how to move towards Sampurna Sharanagati day after day. So that we have heard. And yeah. And then how King Bharata came into deer body. There we have seen how Lord's mercies may not be evident, but very abundant. Not evident because we thought, oh, okay, from human body, Bharata came into the deer body. Apparently, it looks like spiritual regression, but no, there is only progression. The bhakti was getting more denser. That we have seen there. And after that, yeah, the deer Bharata lives its life at Pulahastram, and that comes to into the Jada Bharata's body. And Jada Bharata, how he was so much udasina. He was on a mission inside. A mission back home, back to Godhead. So whatever happens outside did not really bother him much. And then finally, how all the goddesses, the Mother Kali or any demigods, how they are in favor of the Vaishnavas, because Vaishnavas are more in Sattvika Guna, while their worshippers can be in Tamasika Guna. So that's why Lord Shiva said in Rudra Gita the same thing, that he considers the Vaishnava equally affectionate, loving as he would consider Lord Hari. And here, Mother Kali also, she is in favor of Jada Bharata because he is exalted. And that's why she punished the rest of the dacoits here. So in this way, all the demigods are also favorable to Vaishnavas. That's all the